Or
Ow. Andre, we're live.
those aren't my teeth marks.
Okay, we're just going to start in a second.
What is your
Join us live with Tara and Andre.
Like we're disjointed. We got one.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi. Happy Monday.
Yeah, happy.
It's Monday, our favorite day of the week.
Your favorite day for sure. I like, Thursdays, Fridays, Saturdays, part of Sundays.
Okay. I mean, it's my favorite work day of the week because I get to go live with you and talk to all these amazing people out in Let's Talk Polyamory and today on our YouTube channel.
Okay. Well, that makes Mondays better. Yes. So it is Monday and it is 11 o'clock, which means we are live here in this part of the world.
In this part of the world. It's probably a different time where you are.
Possibly. Yeah.
Yeah. So today, so say hello in the chat. Tell us where you're joining us from, even if you're watching the replay. We love to know where people are watching from, what you're interested in, and that sort of thing. So.
And did we say hello? I'm Andre.
And I'm Tara.
Yeah.
So hello. I'm a relationship and awesomeness coach.
You are awesome.
You're awesome. I just put awesome in the title because I feel like I do more than relationship coaching.
Yeah.
I think when people come to me, we talk about self a lot, even if they're in a relationship and who we are in as ourselves and how we can be more awesome.
Okay,
and that's also my favorite word. One of my favorite
words. Yes. You often say awesome, and that's awesome.
And you are?
I'm Andre Turcotte. I am a sex positive psychotherapist. And yes, we talk about self and sex a lot. So here we are talking about it.
Yeah. So today, if we'd love to hear your questions and comments in the chat. We always follow up after the live if we don't get to them. So feel free to drop them there or send us a message.
Sure.
But before we jump into today's topic, we have an exciting announcement.
Yeah, we do. It is very exciting. So we've been asked, when are you guys going to host another party or do a speed dating event? And now we've actually set the date. It's for April 22nd, which is quickly approaching. It's a Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time.
Yes, exactly.
And be there and be queer, be whatever. Didn't they used to say that? Be there, be queer, something like that. No? When it was not as.
I'm here.
popular.
I'm queer.
Oh, that's right. No,
I'm here. I'm queer.
No, I was thinking of a different one. But anyway,
yes,
it's all good.
So many of you said that you find it hard to meet other people that are open or polyamorous or that sort of thing. So, and I think in some places it is more difficult. It's a little more underground. We even heard from friends when we were traveling that they have trouble in their own community meeting
in certain markets.
So it's like you have to meet some people and then they introduce you to people and then it opens this whole network of things. So even if you're not sure if there are going to be people from your area joining in, you should join in because you could meet other friends and connections. I think it's all about connections.
So. Well, not long ago, we met somebody whom we'd only been speaking to online, and we actually met them in person, which is not uncommon, but this happened to be somebody who was, in fact, from another country.
Yes.
So it's quite extraordinary, right? So we come together, and in our little Let's Talk Poly group, we have literally people from around the world. So who knows where the connections are going to go and what's going to come of them, but we come with the openness of what might happen. So come on down and check it out.
Yeah, well, there's 1,300 people in Let's Talk Poly, like you said. And so you'll never know who you're going to meet. It's going to be a sex positive and inclusive event, which, that's important to us.
Sure. And it relates different styles, right? So you might come and meet people who are represented in a triad, 3, or they might be somewhat of a poly, or they might be 2 individuals together or a couple or whatever. We don't know.
They may be on the whole spectrum of gender or sexual identity, which I think is super exciting.
Yeah,
and of course, you'll get to meet us and we'll get to meet you, which is what we really love. So we'll put the link up to sign up, but it's also in the featured section. So perfect. Let's get on to today's subject.
Do it.
So the 5 ways.
Continuation of.
Yes, the continuation. So if you missed last week, we started there, but we're talking about the 5 ways to reignite the fire in longer term relationships.
Longer term.
Well, long-term relationships or... They don't have to be long term, I suppose, but I think
no. But if you're doing this on the first date, maybe that's saying something.
Maybe.
No, this is generally for people who've been dating for a little bit.
Yeah. So there's 5 things,
Okay.
and we talked about the first one last week. So if you missed it, it was a really good chat about having some distance and spending time apart, which we'll get into in a second.
And you can check out that previous thing in the guides, right?
It's in the guides.
See, I got that.
Yes.
Yes.
Number 2, which we're going to talk about today, is being present. Yes.
Being present.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Number 3 is interrupting patterns and routines.
And 4 is increased sexual and erotic energy.
Ooh, that's going to be a hot one. Maybe we'll dress differently for that one.
Oh, interesting. You had a thought.
I have a thought.
You're
And
full of
number
thoughts.
5 is to do something different and take deliberate effort, because I think that's the part that's super important that people forget about. Because I think we think that desire and intimacy is all of a sudden going to come back if it's been gone. So
Right, but how does it come back? And very often it starts with that thought or that feeling, and then it's manifests through our behavior.
Yes,
right. So what action
exactly.
might we take to express that in our offer?
And
Yeah.
sometimes we need a little fire under our butt to do some things. So,
Sometimes, yeah.
So last week we spoke a lot about number 1, which was having some distance and spending time apart.
And now we're going to talk about number 2.
Yes, but first, just a bit of a recap. I think what happens when we become a we is that we lose a bit of the me.
Right.
We gain a lot of really amazing things like security, safety, love, connection, predictability, and our safe haven.
Right.
But then I think we can also lose, when we first start dating and getting to know
that
someone.
mystery or intrigue, we don't quite have all the
Yeah.
answers yet, right? Yeah.
So they're an unknown thing to us, a person to us, and so that makes exciting. And maybe you don't get to see them as often, and that sort of thing. So that brings us together. So that was what we talked a bit about last week, was how we can create time apart, even if we're in a situation, or you're in a situation like us, if you're nesting and need some time and space to do fun things.
Right.
So it's in the guides, as you said. So now on to number 2, being present.
Right. So last week, as you said, we spoke about making ourselves
Apart.
less available, right?
Yeah.
Taking some space. And now we're talking about what about actually when we are together? How could we be present? And when we say to be present, it's not just the physical part. We're talking about also being emotionally and sexually present as well, right? So
Exactly.
there's different ways to.
Yeah, because I think there's so many distractions that we have in our life, and when we are present, we're not necessarily present. The term, your presence is present enough, but I think presence in itself is not the only thing. And like you said, I think there's 3 sort of areas, and we're going to talk about these, to being present in relation to how you'd reignite the fire and desire in your life. So like you said, being physically present, which we'll go into, being emotionally present, and then being sexual present.
Right.
Present.
Yeah, your sexuality is a present that you share with me.
It is. That's true. That's true. So let's start with number 1 of the 3, being physically present.
So are we just showing up physically? And, that's already in itself a start, but is that enough, right? And we'll talk about the quality of showing up physically, but it makes me think back to even the idea of allowing ourselves to be physically present, right? So say, for example, you get invited out to go for breakfast with your buds or to grab a beer. Are you automatically going to say yes, or you find yourself at times perhaps wanting to say no? So are you already defeating yourself in a way by not allowing for that? Can you catch yourself when you are more tempted or more likely to say no and allow yourself to say yes? Right?
Exactly. So this is where you stop and you ask yourself the question: am I being physically present?
Right.
Am I being there? Am I saying no rather than yes?
Right.
Are we hiding away?
Sure.
Like, I know some couples where, and I'll admit guilty on my part to this, is that you're in the same space, but you separate yourself. So you might go to bed early,
right?
Hide away, avoid your partner.
Yeah.
Oops. I got to delete them. Okay, we'll just leave them.
Gosh.
They're just going to keep coming, though. That's the problem.
We're getting these interesting offerings in the chat here.
This
but
is what happens when we go to YouTube. Okay, so are we being physically present? So, like I was saying, you can be in the same room, but not in the same room in terms of your.
Well, it makes me think of having to go to a business meeting, for example, right? You might show up and be on Zoom these days, whatever, and you're physically there, but you're not really there, right? You're kind of mailing it in. You're not present in your presence.
Exactly. So I just want to say hi to some of the people joining us. Hi, Melissa.
Hello,
Hi,
everyone.
those from Stormy, Alabama, doing your washing. Victoria, BC. Anyone else there? Say hello. So
The romper room section. I see Jenny. I
that.
see George. I see Tara.
That might have just aged us.
And so what?
Romper
So what?
room.
Are we ageist?
Romper room.
No, but are we ageist? Do you have anything against it? I'm an old man.
No, I'm
Hey,
pretty
old
happy
man.
about my age.
Yeah, so it ages us. Yes, we are ancient.
Yes.
And loving it.
I mean, speaking of age, just to off on a small detour, I'm turning 50 this year.
50?
Yes.
You told me 30. Whoa. There goes my 20-year warranty.
Well, and I think
50, really?
50,
Wow.
50. But I think
50 is the new hot.
It is the new hot, and I feel like the new hot.
You are
And
hot.
I think the big part of it and why we do what we do, I think, is because we're having more fun and excitement and trying new things, and like that's why we're here talking to you about this stuff. Is like we want that for you too. So,
But also on the topic of age, I think of me dear old mom, not too old, and she's a woman of a certain age, as they would say, and she is still as vivacious and as vibrant as she was years ago, and still wanting to have these expressions. This is not a limited time offer, right? Our sexuality, our expression comes with us forever. There are many examples of people being well advanced and still being very sexy and very much enthusiastic about their love and sex life.
Yeah. So no matter the age, if you pay attention and you start to do these things and get help where you need it, you can have more desire and excitement and all that. So that's,
Well, the way we say that a body in motion tends to stay in motion, right? So we go to the gym, we stay active while we're doing this sexual, psychic, emotional energy workout as well. We are keeping ourselves fluid in that way.
Awesome. So we talked about being physically present, but like you said, and what we talked about is being physically present is not just being there is not enough. Which is why we have the number 2 being present is being emotionally present.
Right.
That's sometimes the harder thing.
Well, let's go back for just a second. So if I feel that I'm physically present, but not quite there, really, well, those feelings or the lack of those feelings are informing me. So we might want to ask, well, what's going on there? So it's,
what is going on there?
Right. Am I wanting to connect but finding it difficult? Am I concerned about the potential for this, that, and the other thing? What's at play?
Yeah, that's true. Because I think that's what happens when people come to us in our practices and our private practices is that there's something there and they can't really pinpoint it. It's hard to admit to ourselves, some of these things, I think.
Yeah. I think generally in a very simplified form, people come to us in our practices because either they are not feeling enough of the feelings they want to have, or they're feeling too much of the feelings they're having.
Exactly.
And we can help with doing the work we do, help them come to terms with that, become more informed, figure out what's going on, and figure out what is that they're wanting and how to get that.
But I think, you can do that in more of a therapeutic or coaching practice one-on-one, but you can also do it more effectively or even more effectively, I think, in a group situation, like in our program.
Also effectively, yes.
Yeah, also effectively. Okay, let's carrying on to number 2, being emotionally present. Carrying on. We are carrying on.
You're always carrying on.
So being emotionally present. So what does that mean? So we can be physically present, but are you also emotionally present? So what is emotionally present?
Yeah, being in touch with our thoughts and feelings, for me, is the idea of being emotionally feeling, right?
Yeah.
So are we feeling distracted? Are we doing other things? Are we allowing ourselves to just be in the moment, to be emotionally present?
Exactly.
To feel your feelings.
Because I think we can be present, and this goes to when, we're in, we're trying to be intimate with a partner, but we may not be fully engaged in the activity with all of our emotions and things. So it's like when we show up, you gave the example when we were talking this morning about being in a business meeting that we don't want to be in. Are we really there? Like we showed up, but if we're not actively participating and emotionally and active in the moment, we are not actually doing the whole thing. And so I think this is what happens sometimes in longer term relationships. We figure if we are present, that should be enough. Right.
But how are we being present? Are we just wanting to get it over with? Are we kind of like, I think you call it the hit it and quit it kind of deal. Like, let's just, I know that position 69 works well. So do you want to just go to 69 and we'll get it over with? Is it like, but are we avoiding any kind of feelings? Again, it's something to consider, right? What is disallowing ourselves to be as present as we might otherwise be. But why should we even want to be present, really?
Well, why should we? Because I think we get the full experience of being with someone if we're not just physically but emotionally present. And then we're going to get to the third part.
Right.
But I think like you said, I think if we're not being emotionally present, what is that a sign of? And there could be a lot of things going on, but sometimes it's our own avoidance, or sometimes we don't want to deal with the situation that's uncomfortable. But what, thinking about what does it feel like for you to be emotionally present?
Yeah. I was thinking about the reason why, though, just for a second, to go back, why should I want to be emotionally present? And I think because it increases my experience of the time together. Right? Because I can mail it in and just be physically present, but I'm not feeling that same level of connection. I'm not feeling that same level of gratification, all those things. So it adds another dimension when I can allow myself to be present, when I receive the benefits of being present.
And we're being asked in the questions by Facebook users, what does it look like to be emotionally present? Can you give us an example? Yeah, I think it's, if your mind is wandering onto other things, or just being, you can, in the moment, be curious about what's going on in your thoughts. What are my thoughts? What feelings am I having associated with whatever activity I'm doing? I mean, it's a lot more complicated, I think, than that. But I think it's, theoretically, it sounds easy to be emotionally present. But what,
But how do you know when you're there? How do you know when you are emotionally present? So I think I know when I'm not, when I'm feeling the fear of vulnerability, or feel that I might be too intimate, too close. Maybe I want to buffer that and not be as emotionally present. But what would be an indication of our being emotionally present? And I think it's when I feel that connectedness, when I don't necessarily subscribe to my fears or my anxieties, my inhibitions, all those things. When I feel that I am psychically held, either by the other or by myself, and feel that I am contained, that I feel like I am secure in this position, that I feel loved in whatever that might mean, to be loved. So there's a feeling that comes over me. And when I have that feeling, I say, I feel like I'm present. I feel like I'm here with you. I feel seen by you, and I see you.
Yeah, exactly.
Emotionally. So that for me is one of the indicators of being emotionally connected.
What was interesting, I was out on a date with a friend, actually just a friend, not a sexy friend. I don't know why I need to clarify that.
You don't have any friends that aren't sexy? All your friends look like they're sexy, but anyway, go on.
But I mean, with a good girlfriend.
A platonic, I think, is the term.
A platonic is the term. I'm seeing it here on my. And what she said to me was, I was avoiding her eyes.
Oh, interesting.
And I don't know why. I was telling a story, and she's like, is everything okay with you? So that's a good example of me maybe not being emotionally present. And I think, I don't know what was going on with me in the moment. I think I was telling the story and maybe I was uncomfortable with it, or I don't know. Or
the subject matter?
Maybe the subject matter, or that she might have ideas about it, even though I know she wouldn't. So I'm not sure what was going on in that, but she noticed something in me not being emotionally present.
So she alerted you to this, or she offered you, she shared her insight, her feeling about that. How did you receive that? Did it invite you into being more present, or did you, were you taken off guard by it, or what was the reaction?
I was like, at first, then I was like noticing that I wasn't looking at her and that I was looking away. And it's like, why am I not looking at her as I'm talking to her? So I think I was more curious about it. I didn't figure out in the moment what it was, but I think this is what happens. It's like, it's hard sometimes to see what's going on inside of us. I think it's why, why people, when they come to work with us, it's helpful to, or with whomever, it's helpful to help someone, because they can see more sometimes than we can see ourselves.
Sure. But also I think what might come from a situation like that is the other person shares their feeling, their thought about it, and then it brings it to our consciousness. And then all of a sudden we are perhaps more aware, and we say, well, actually, you know what? Now that I think about it, you're right. I was not feeling as comfortable. I was kind of a little bit further away. But I think a lot of it also depends on who's asking us and how it might be asked. Are they inviting us to it and wanting to help us regain that intimacy, come into it?
Well, we may not be emotionally present because we're trying to protect ourselves. Maybe we doesn't feel safe to be emotionally present with somebody, you know what I mean? And I think if it doesn't, then that's also something that you might want to be aware and conscious of.
Yeah, for sure. And there are things that you can do. You can speak to somebody, professional about that and find ways to allow for that expression, to become better acquainted with it, more secure in it, less vulnerable.
But if you're with somebody who you've been with a long time, and it's just a matter of you've become more friends or strangers in the same location, friends or strangers, in your location. Right. Can you imagine, or if maybe there's hurt or resentments, like we said, and that you're holding on to those and it's preventing you from being connected and emotionally present. So can you imagine what might happen in your relationship if you could be present and shift in your desire, like what the shift would be in your desire and pleasure if you were more emotional with your partner?
Right. Great question.
Because I think, we talked about this morning, about hurt and resentment, and we did a whole talk on resentment. So you might want to take a look at that
in the guides.
But, I think the thing that you pointed out is, I think we hold on to our resentment.
Right.
And, what would happen if we can release it? Like, can we suspend it momentarily to allow for emotional connection with someone where where it's in a safe situation, of course. Right. Like we might approach, say, exercise routine, like we don't want to start to exercise because you're afraid of it, right? It might be painful. It might be hard. We might fail and that sort of thing. Or it might not be this particular thing, Zumba might not be the thing for you.
Right.
It's the same, maybe not the same, but like you can talk about your hurt and resentment. What if you could suspend it?
So we become aware that we might have a position of resentment, and we are in fact bringing that forward with us. It taxes our own psychic economy. It's an inside job. We attach that amount of value. It's interesting, speaking to couples that we work with, very often when they have a long, successful relationship, I might ask them, well, what are some of the components? And one of the things they say is, well, we know what's important and what's not important. So there are things that we might attach more importance to than necessary, or things that we're able to minimize. So am I making a big deal of this? So to let go of the resentment, it's not necessarily just saying that, oh, it's not important, but how will I be affected by it? It's not as though I'm just going to close my eyes to it. We can address these things, but can I let it not be the decisive factor in how I'm going to participate in things? So can I suspend it or release myself from the binds of it? Yeah. And then address what the core issue is towards that.
Yeah. And I think, it can be hard, but it's like, also what are the benefits of, trying to release it? And, you can always go back to it. Right. You can always go back to it if you want it.
What are the benefits of holding on to that resentment? Right. So even if right. So you could suspend it long enough to be present with somebody and then, go back to resentment if it's that important to you.
Yeah, exactly.
It's still there waiting for
but
you.
Why would you?
Right, exactly. Because in reality, if you only have 100 days and you spent 99 of those in resentment, well, that's the reality that you've shaped for yourself, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So if there is something bothering you that created that resentment, look towards that subject, but see if you can release yourself from that bond.
The hurt or resentment.
Right. Because that resentment can sometimes prohibit us from being fully present
emotionally.
Or present enough.
And sexually, right? So it's, I think you could deal with a number of ways, but it's one of the reasons why in our erotic exotic staycation transformation, the first few sexy dates are about reconnecting emotionally and physically with your partner. And it's like a gradual thing. Like we're not going to jump into tying you up, but let's start with like reconnecting and being more present with each other physically and emotionally through touch, sensory exploration, that sort of thing. So then that leads us to the third thing of being present, which is being sexually present.
Being sexually present. So when being intimate, does it feel like our body is fully there, or are we kind of like not quite there? And, again, these feelings inform us as to our position.
Yeah. And I think you might say, of course I'm present. I'm right there. But then I think when you might be going through the motions, the idea, like I think as you said it earlier, hitting it and quitting it, trying to get it over with, because maybe it's something that you feel is an obligation. And I think, things to try. And I think this is part of, again, what we do in our program is like, what are the things that you can experience that might allow it to be different and for you to be more physically present? Like recently, we were in a situation with other people. And I was like, I started getting in my head thinking about, oh, I'm not into it. What if I'm not into it?
Hmm.
Or like, am I into it? Like I was asking this question.
You're really in your head.
I was really in my head,
Mhm.
which I know people use fantasy and that sort of thing to get yourself going, and that can be good.
Yeah.
But I think what I did actively in that moment is let me get back to the physical, sexual sensations. And it really shifted
Mhm.
the energy for me.
Yeah. I think for me, when I try to get back into my body, I make a concerted effort to really focus on my five senses.
Oh,
I find that to be
Mhm.
very helpful. So I will focus on what is it I'm looking at? What does it smell like? What does it taste like? What are the sounds that are going on? And it stops me from future forecasting, right? So the idea is that am I going to be pleasing them enough, or am I going to be, big enough, strong enough, whatever the concern might be, and I'm no longer in the present. I'm not with you. I'm
Yeah.
forecasted out. But when I bring myself back to those five senses, I can't help but be present. I am
Mhm.
there, and then the magic really happens.
Yeah, it's almost like you're like out, you pick your, like sometimes what we do
Mhm.
is we pick ourselves up outside of our body and we're
Right.
watching, just watching and performing rather than feeling.
Mhm.
And I think,
Right.
the things really shift where you really start to pay attention to everything. And I think the big learning for me this year has been breath and
Mhm.
breathing and relaxing. And I think if you get in touch back with your breath, it's such a huge thing. I mean, it's
Right.
used in Tantra and some other things, but again, these are things we talk about in our program that we've excitedly experienced and, would love to share.
It makes me, love to share, because it's amazing. I think like about somebody I dated a few years ago, and she suggested that I try to breathe through my penis, which I thought was absurd. I mean, here was this vulva owner explaining to me how to breathe through my penis. And I think I ridiculed it in some part of my mind.
Even when we started dating, you told me that story.
Right.
You're like, breathe through my cock.
Whatever. And yet here we are, perhaps suggesting things to other people that they might also say, well, these two are like, they've gone off the rails. But now I come to realize, yes, I can, in fact, breathe through many parts of my body, including my penis, and it's wonderful. So remain open to the idea of it, the possibility of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, breathing and really feeling.
And being present.
Oh, I'm getting hot.
Wonderful. Hold that thought.
Hold that thought.
Just for a couple more minutes.
So being physically, so being emotionally. Okay, so to recap, we talked about how being present,
yes,
physically, emotionally, and sexually is number two, another way to reignite the fire in your long-term relationships. Yeah. I like being present.
It is.
So,
nice.
And like we also said, sometimes being present, it can be a bit scary.
Sometimes.
Yeah. Have you had situations where it's felt scary for you?
I have. I have. I don't have to go back very far. There are times when I'm invited to go out and do something, and I'm wanting to go, but yet there are some concerns, some fears, some old fears of whatever kind of vulnerabilities you want to call it, but that I might not be interesting enough, that I might not say things that are engaging enough, or whatever the fantasy is. And sometimes it's not very well defined. It's just that feeling. And the initial impulse is to decline the offer, as opposed to saying, you know what, I'm good enough as it is. We'll go and we'll figure it out. And then when I do allow for that expression, lo and behold, I go, it's fantastic. We figured it out, and it's remarkable. So, it's that willingness to go beyond the certain levels of vulnerability, but it starts with that awareness and allowing for it.
Yeah, starting to be present. So it's why we want to invite you, as always, to join us in our erotic exotic staycation vacation, because we want to invite you to bring yourself back to the present and start to increase desire and pleasure and sex and intimacy with your partners. So we set up a series of 12 sexy dates that take you through this gradually. I think we talked a bit about, the sensory exploration and gradual entry into it, so that you can start to bring back the fire, or, even light it higher, add more air into it.
But, for me, it's that if I were to not allow for this, if I were to just stay in my feeling state of fear, well, then my universe starts to implode, and my experience becomes smaller and smaller, and the fears kind of get solidified, and they grow onto themselves, and they become justified, even though they're simply feelings and not actually facts. Whereas when I go the other way and I say, wait, this is a feeling. Maybe my past has indicated this, but it's not necessarily an indication of how things are going to be in the future. When I can allow for even a little bit of openness to that, then I can start to look beyond that and have new feelings, new experiences, and say, wow, this is survivable. And not only, in fact, was it survivable, it was enjoyable.
Right. So we want to encourage you to start by saying yes, to be present, join us, be present with your partners, and bring back the fire and sex and excitement.
Or keep it going if you've never lost it.
Keep it going or level it up.
Sure.
I think these things will level it up too. So, but we'd love to show you exactly how to do that. And if you're interested in our program or if you want to chat with us, you can always reach out and book a call.
There we are.
TaraandAndre.com/book-with-us. And don't forget also, we'll drop that in the chat, but also our polyamory speed dating, which is going to be awesome.
I'm excited. What are we going to wear?
Ooh, well, in the description, if you click on the link, it talks about like what, bringing your sexy self or what would make you feel fabulous,
but not arriving nude.
Not arriving nude. This is not a nude party, but you can bring clothes. You wear clothes to make you feel fabulous.
Okay.
So let's figure out our outfits for that.
And you and I, we're going to be in the same location, but on different screens, or is that remain to be seen? Or
I think it depends.
Are we showing up as two separate individuals?
Yeah, we might show up separately because we want to make it a safe event and for everybody.
Well, for sure, it'll be safe.
Of course, it'll be safe, but we want to be able to support people. So if we have two screens, it might be easier.
Maybe.
But we'll figure out. We're figuring out all the logistics.
Right.
But the most important part is it's going to be fun.
But I think it's interesting because if we are nesting or we're dating, and Friday night we have a date, and I come over to your place, you come to mine. Are we wanting to do that together as like a thing, or what would our experience be like if we were to do it separately, even from the same location? Right?
Yeah.
It's like when you travel by yourself or you travel with a couple, both forms of travel are fantastic, but it will be a different experience.
Yeah. So you can sign up as an individual, a 2-person or a 3-person. But even if you're in a 2-person or 3-person relationship, you could also, like you said, show up yourself and then have the experience on your own, which I think is actually even better.
Well, especially for this format, because we're going to be interviewing each other in a sense, right? It's going to be a date. We're going to be speaking to each other. So when there's more than one person, if we're really listening to understand, we might not get the same opportunity to have that dialogue. So think about it.
Awesome. And like I said, if you would like, reach out and book a call with us and talk to us about like a longer term solution to increasing the fire and desire in your relationship.
Cool.
Thanks everyone for joining us.
All right. Thank you.
That was a good one.
It always is. Bye.
Bye.